My name's Harriet. I hack your AI so the bad guys can't. The cybersecurity threat has a new contender, AI. The field of AI security deals in the vulnerabilities, exploits, and attacks that can be performed against AI systems themselves. It deals in hacking AI. It's a new field. Most people aren't even aware AI can be deceived, disrupted, or disclose sensitive information, but it's actually very easy. Most productionized AI models are vulnerable. The organizations that release these models often don't know it, but the bad guys do. This is my job. We hack organizations' AI so the bad guys can't. Hi, this is me. I'm Harriet Farlow. For at least a year now, probably almost 2 years, I've been complaining about the lack of AI security resources. So much so that my friends told me I needed to find another outlet for it, and so here we are. So now you are my outlet. But in all seriousness, my PhD is in adversarial machine learning, and I'd been working as a data scientist for about 6 years before I started this PhD. And in all of those teams, I worked in a bunch of industries, in consulting, in academia, physics academia, in a startup, and then most recently in the government. And throughout all of that time, data scientists often talked about safety and bias in terms of models, but never security. So then I came across this field, adversarial machine learning, and I thought, how have I never heard about this until now? How is it that for years I've been working as a data scientist and I never thought to consider that models themselves may be insecure? For 3 years, I worked as a data scientist in a cybersecurity team. So I was always thinking about cybersecurity principles and mitigations and controls, and my master actually is in cybersecurity. And so once I found out about this and progressed through my PhD in it, it became more important to me that more people knew about this, because everyone's talking about AI at the moment. Everyone is integrating AI into their solutions right now. And then ChatGPT came out last year and it felt like the whole field exploded. But there are so many ways that these models can be hacked. There are so many vulnerabilities that are baked in to the machine learning process that people just aren't aware of. And especially coming from a cybersecurity background, I don't want to see a future where AI security supersedes cybersecurity as the world's greatest technical and geostrategic threat. So the two main reasons that we're here is to prevent AI security from becoming the next great technical and geostrategic threat, and secondly, to introduce a new generation of hackers into this field. Maybe you could say I'm on a mission to make AI hacking as cool as computer hacking was in the 90s, or even cooler. So this is the first in a series of 10 videos, and it's going to be followed up by some other deeper dive series and videos into some of the more technical topics. So I obviously come from a technical background, and I can go as deep as you like into adversarial machine learning because it's fascinating, but it does get mathy very quickly. And from my perspective, I think it's really important that people from different fields learn about AI security so that you can bring your learnings and your knowledge from your own disciplines into this. So I'm keeping this introductory series intentionally high level, and it's going to cover a lot of ground. And the idea is that over the 10 videos, you should understand everything you need to know about the field of AI security so that you can then decide to go deeper. So these 10 videos are going to cover things like what is AI and why is it vulnerable, adversarial machine learning, including a little bit of math, a 101 into cybersecurity, and what kinds of principles from cybersecurity can be transferred over to AI security. And then of course, because this is what people usually assume I'm talking about, we're going to do an episode on AI for cybersecurity, which is different but still equally interesting. We'll also be talking about things like national security governance and policy. And the last two videos are dedicated to getting you up to speed in AI security. with video non-benign covering how what kinds of different resources exist and how you can integrate AI security into your study, your career path perhaps. I'll talk a little bit about my career journey to get here. And video 10 will be a hands-on demo that we'll do together. So you'll have access to a Google Colab notebook that you'll be able to use to run your own adversarial machine learning attack on your own data, and we'll step through it together. I'm really passionate about bringing people along that journey because I think it's a fascinating one and I wouldn't choose any other career. Your mission, should you choose to accept, is to understand what you can about AI security and then propel it forward by bringing your own ideas, your own background, your own passion into this, because this field will only benefit from more of us and more people from different kinds of backgrounds. So let's proceed. So before we get into AI security, what even is AI? Now, the next video is going to cover this question more in detail, but I will say that until recently, I always prescribed to this quote that you may have heard, that AI is in PowerPoint and machine learning is in Python. And to be honest, no offense to the previous consulting company I worked for, but this really tracked with my experience. However, this year, ISO defined AI in more of a technical way. And so with this sort of blessing from ISO, the International Standards Organization, I finally decided to adopt the term. The term AI hasn't traditionally referred to any specific technology, but it's usually been used the way that you would describe a goal. You know, with all of the vast technologies that we've been using over the last century, the goal of those technologies has been some kind of artificial intelligence. But for now, we can say that AI security is the field that pertains to the hardening of AI systems to exploitation, disruption, and attack. And it involves both technical and governance principles. Now, let's introduce an AI. So when I bring up AI with my friends and family, usually the first example that comes to their mind is Skynet and the Terminator. And I don't know if that's because I happen to, have worked with a lot of people born in the 80s, or if the Terminator is just a really good movie. There's certainly been a lot of spin-offs, but I think the thing that's really resonated with people is this idea of artificial intelligence as this all-knowing entity that has the power and means and cognitive ability to think for itself and decide that it should, take over the world and subjugate humans. Now, let's look at Skynet from an adversarial perspective. So when cybersecurity and information security professionals look at any system to examine what kinds of vulnerabilities and exploits it has, which would therefore inform how secure it is, they would refer to this system as an attack surface. So if it's a very small system with a few components, and they're pretty simple components, you could say that it's a very small attack surface. There aren't many entry points for a potential attacker to get in and disrupt this particular system. But if it's a big system and it's very complicated and there are lots of points where data is entered, where it is output, where there's different connections with other systems, you would say that this is a very large attack surface. There are lots of potential vulnerabilities in this system that an adversary could exploit. Now, just because a system has a vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean it could turn into an exploit. For example, a vulnerability is just like any code bug, which does something that might not be intended by the system's designer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do something bad if an attacker finds out about it. But if you have a very large system, the likelihood that you have a particular vulnerability that could lead to something bad dramatically increases. So, for example, if a system has 1,000 vulnerabilities, and if just one of those vulnerabilities could be turned into an exploit by virtue of how it can be accessed, what kind of data it uses, and how it impacts the system, then you would need to consider how to secure that system and how to mitigate the risk of vulnerabilities turning into exploits. And from there, cyber and information security professionals obviously have a large sort of practical doctrine of how you would approach this, and you could either mitigate the risk, control the risk, patch the system, or maybe you would just accept the risk. So if we look at Skynet, the system, at a very high level, you could say that the four major components that make up its attack surface are the hardware, the AI brain, the sensors, and the connective fibers. All of these four components perform different functions, and between all of them there would be data flowing and moving around and transforming, and all of these are informing different decisions. So Skynet's brain would comprise of many different kinds of decision-making engines. There would be some simple rules-based logic that could just be programmed in by its designer. There would be some simple algorithms. There would be some machine learning models. And while I say, some, there could in reality be hundreds or thousands. There might be multiple machine learning models for a particular function, if that function is particularly complex, or as fail-safes. Traditionally, the practitioner view of this system is to refer to just this brain as the AI component. Skynet is a pretty big attack surface because it performs many different functions, like computer vision, so being able to process its surroundings and try and look for Sarah Connor so that it could kill her. It would also include natural language processing ability. Now, Skynet would also be able to interpret communications in other ways. So it would most likely, I'm imagining here in the fictional world of the Terminator, it would be able to process information from GPS, from RF, which is radio frequency, and from perhaps any other sensor ability it might have, perhaps LiDAR, which is available today in autonomous vehicles. So with all of these many components and all of these different ways of processing data, Skynet is a pretty complex attack surface. Now let's think about the offensive side of AI security, and that is the field of adversarial machine learning, which I've mentioned a couple of times because this is the subject of my PhD. It really looks at how you can exploit machine learning systems through methods that are inherent in the nature of, for example, deep learning optimization. And it might include things like evading classification, hijacking the model to make it do something it wasn't intended to do, or leaking sensitive information about either the model or the data it was trained on. Now, the idea of hacking models or algorithms has existed as long as those models have. For example, spam filters in the early 2000s have long been big targets by criminals who are trying to evade them. The thing that's different about adversarial machine learning is that it is more specific to the optimization process of machine learning models. It's only been around for about 10 years, but it has exploded. It really followed the rise of deep learning, which is a field that we saw rise to prominence in the late 2000s and the early 2010s, thanks to the dramatic increase in computational power we had available. Different ways that you could attack models are called adversarial examples. For example, in adversarial machine learning, there are at least 90 different kinds of attacks, perhaps more if we include very tailored, bespoke ones that come out in academic papers. And if I employed these against Skynet, I would be able to do all sorts of things to make Skynet not behave as intended. For example, I could hack Skynet's computer vision capabilities so that it can't recognize Sarah Connor and it doesn't kill her. I could also feed it adversarially crafted audio so that it cannot hear Sarah Connor. Now, adversarial machine learning and AI security are related, but not to be confused with the field of AI safety. That refers more specifically to how AI systems can be biased or misused. AI safety problems often tend to arise because of the way that an AI system was designed. For example, if we look at Skynet, an AI safety problem could be if the Department of Defense decided to create this AI system called Skynet, but they did not give it appropriate controls around its use. So if a human told Skynet to kill another human, Skynet might go and do that. A subfield within AI safety is AI alignment. And this also is concerned with how a system might be misused, but that concern arises more from the ability of that AI to develop some kind of misaligned goal. So a designer could give an AI system a particular goal or objective, but for some reason during the learning process that AI system ends up developing some sort of different goal. And if this is at odds with the intended goal, then we might call this misaligned. Let's go back to Skynet. For example, if the Department of Defense designed Skynet to help humans, and so Skynet learned during its training process that the most effective way for it to reach its goal was actually to imprison all humans and subjugate them to its own control, which is, of course, what happens in the movies. This also might lead to the AI system developing behaviours that are considered misaligned. So it could hide its true objective from the human designers, it could seek power so that it is better able to reach those objectives, it could gather resources for the same end. Some of you have probably heard about the Elon Musk letter that came out this year, and I hate calling it that because Elon Musk was one signatory, but there were many others. And it was actually a letter penned by an organisation called the Future of Life Institute, of which I'm also a member. And the letter did get blown out of proportion a little bit. It basically called for a 6-month pause in AI development while the AI alignment and safety fields were able to, keep up with where the technology is. Another risk associated with AI alignment is the existential risk, and it's often shortened to X-risk. And it's basically concerned with the potential for AI systems to become so powerful that they propose some kind of existential risk to humans, like human extinction or some other kind of global catastrophe, aka Skynet. Generally, this is more concerned about artificial intelligence that reaches AGI level, AGI being artificial general intelligence, or sometimes referred to as the singularity, which is basically when artificial intelligence reaches a level of human cognitive ability or greater. And when we say cognitive ability, obviously that is still kind of open to interpretation, but like I said, we're going to discuss that more in the next video. A group of people that are often associated with AI safety and AI alignment is the effective altruism community. And the effective altruism movement is basically one that applies scientific principles to allocation of effort in the world to make sure that the world is the best place we can make it. And so there are a lot of different research areas they cover. AI safety and alignment is one of them, but also global health and climate change are a couple of others. Now, obviously AI safety and AI alignment are two important fields that we should also know a bit about, but my focus is AI security, and I would not do them the best justice. There are already a lot of other YouTubers who are talking about them and a lot more content generally online. I'm going to add a link here to Rob Miles, who is my favourite AI safety YouTuber, and I highly recommend you check him out if you want to learn more about AI safety. And so while I love hacking AI, it is my absolute favourite pastime. I often joke actually that I missed the boat in computer hacking, and so now I hack AI instead. If any of you out there are also interested in hacking AI, I must make this disclaimer, and that is that I only support doing this for white hat purposes. So that is learning more about the vulnerabilities in AI systems so that we can secure them and report them to the organisations that designed them. Now, obviously, I'm still getting used to YouTube here, so please don't laugh at me while I say subscribe below so that you don't miss out on the other videos in this series. Please leave a comment, please like. I'm sure there's other things I meant to say, I don't totally know what. In the next video, we're going to be diving into what exactly AI is and why it's vulnerable. Before we close out the video for today, I would like to leave you with one thing, and that is the AI joke of the week. Woo! So I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time to record this video because I couldn't quite figure out what note to hit, and then some really good friends gave me the advice that I just had to be myself. And unfortunately for all of you, myself usually includes a lot of puns. So I've asked ChatGPT to list some good AI related jokes. Why did the AI go to therapy? It had too many deep learning issues. Harriet hacks? Well, I hack AI and I think I hack some stereotypes.